So 2008 rolled around and the world gets a trailer for Mega Man 9, a downloadable title for the digital services of the time on PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, and Nintendo WiiWare that would take the series back to the classic 8-bit era of classic Mega Man. More specifically, it would be a game that would take inspiration from Mega Man 2, considered to be the most popular entry in the series, with dabbles of other titles like 3 and so on. Now, this was a surprise to me at the time in that A, it was a new Mega Man game, period, and B, it was a new Mega Man in the classic series designed to mimic an entry in the series that would have appeared on the NES. So when I saw that, I was sold. In late 2008, I bought myself a brand new Wii along with 2,000 Wii points, and the first game I got was Mega Man 9, so there you go. I bought a Wii so I could play Mega Man 9. And also because it was cheaper and it had Virtual Console, but it was Mega Man 9 that made that push. And so here I am, a decade later, firing this game up on the Wii and making a video about it, which seems pretty pointless since by the time you're watching this, the Wii Shop in its functional state will be nothing but a distant memory, but there's always that Legacy Collection thing floating around somewhere that has Mega Man 9 on it, and it's pretty much the same thing there, so whatever, let's just roll with it. There has been, and perhaps forever will there be debate as to whether it was a brilliant move on Capcom's part to make a new NES-style Mega Man, or maybe they should have brought Mega Man kicking and screaming into the modern age. And honestly, if Mega Man 9 had taken the latter route, I don't know if I would have been as interested or even cared one bit. I've seen Mega Man try to change or evolve with the times, and sometimes while it might have worked, other times, not so much. And all due respect to Mega Man 7 and 8, which were fine games in their own merits, don't get me wrong, but when I think Mega Man, when I think classic Mega Man, this is the style of play that I associate with that particular incarnation. Mega Man 9 is a return to the old style that suited the classic series best. You had 8 stages to choose from, you played through them, you defeated the various robot masters and gained their special weapons, perhaps the finest collection of master weapons in a Mega Man game before or even since, and then tackled the final stages that took place in Dr. Wily's Skull Castle, because where else were you going to be? All that story fluff built up about Dr. Light's robots going berserk because of their expiry date expiring and the amusing bit where Dr. Light is in jail. Yeah, Wily's behind it all, why is this even a spoiler? This is simple, straightforward Mega Man fare as you would have seen in the old days, and it works best in this format. The levels are designed to be as straightforward as possible, yet pose their own challenges for the player to overcome. Whether it be the classic disappearing blocks, riding the Waveman bubbles, or these rotating tin can things that I thought was pretty neat, or just some rather devious platforming requiring some tight jumping to survive. Hardened Mega Man players may feel at home or even feel a bit of the heat in some of the trickier bits, but those with little to no experience in the classic series may find the challenge to be a bit overwhelming at times. And because Mega Man 9 is primarily inspired by number 2 with dabbles of 3 and up, your abilities are stripped down to the bare minimum. You have no slide, no Mega Buster, charge shot, and in a move that was probably done to emulate the NES style as closely as possible, you don't have the quick weapon cycling ability that you had in 7 and 8, despite having more than enough buttons to pull this off even on the stock Wii remote. Even the later Legacy Collection edition fails to add this rather convenient convenience. However, you do have Rush Coil on hand to give you a boost, and after clearing a few levels, you'll gain Rush Jet. The constantly forward-moving variety, of course. Not only that, but you can collect screws along the way and spend them in the shop where you buy useful items like energy tanks, extra lives, and one-time use items like spike barriers, diving beats, and stuff. Oh, and you could also save your progress, which is a nice modern convenience. Though to be perfectly honest, I kinda miss passwords. I really do. You get to skip over stuff, but I digress. Once you're done with the standard game, which is about 12 levels long, there's other modes to play, some as part of the game and others as part of downloadable content unless you're playing the Legacy Collection version, in which case it's all there, you just need to beat the game or use a code. There's the more challenging hero and superhero modes for those who found the game to be a bit on the easy side. There's a time attack mode where you can try and beat stages in the fastest time possible, and this also includes an exclusive special stage that's lengthy and combines aspects of the main game on your way to an exclusive boss. There's an endless mode where you can see how far you can go on one life, and then there's Proto Man mode, which lets you play as Proto Man. Proto Man can charge his shots, he can slide, and he can even use his shield to deflect shots back at enemies, but he can only have 2 shots on screen, takes twice the damage, and has terrible knockback. Lots of fun to be had with Proto Man, I'll tell you that right now. But despite all that stuff, it means nothing if the core gameplay isn't any good, and Mega Man 9 does a fine job of recreating that 8-bit NES style to a T. There's nothing out of the ordinary here, nothing that would change the world or anything like that. This is just a return to form that's done to near perfection. Controls are pretty spot on, no lag, tight, responsive, pretty much classic fare. Whether it was on the Wii with its various controller setups, or on the 360 or PlayStation 3, or even the more recent Legacy Collection 2 release, control works precisely the way it's supposed to, and that's a nice thing. And speaking of nice, the weapons you get in Mega Man 9 are perhaps the finest collection of master weapons in any Mega Man game before or since, at least as of this moment. The Jewel Shield is perhaps the best incarnation, or at least the most effective incarnation of the shield weapon. The Laser Trident is a nice armor-piercing shot. The Concrete Shot is somehow able to solidify flames as well as form little blocks for you to stand on. The Black Hole sucks up most, but not all enemies into the Endless Void. And the Hornet Chaser not only homes in on enemies, but also seeks out power-ups and brings them back to you, which is a nice little gimmick. Now, of course, if you wanted to, you could go through the whole game with just the Buster, and there's a challenge for that too, but the weapons you gain here are pretty damn good. Useful in many situations, and even almost game-breaking in some cases, but never worthless and plenty of fun to play with. Mega Man 9 looks the part it's trying to emulate, and that's the style of the old games that appeared on the old NES. There's nothing overly fancy like extra out-of-place glitter or glam, it's just a clean-looking recreation of old-school Mega Man's most iconic style, and it does a pretty good job of it, as some of the old assets that the game reuses blend in nicely with the new stuff that they made for this game. Which I suppose shouldn't be too difficult with a style as clean as this. Level layouts aren't anything spectacular even by 8-bit Mega Man standards, it's pretty much retreading old territory for the most part, which is the theme of the day, but it is an excellent rendition of an 8-bit game, especially when you leave the sprite flickering setting on, and some of the later Mega Man games tend to have far worse level design choices, so this could be somewhat forgiven, but on a whole, Mega Man 9 looks pretty good and could easily fit into the timeline of old-school Mega Man just fine, sorta like a Mega Man 2.5 or something. The sound department also plays its role to a T. Now the sound effects are a mishmash of sounds from Mega Man 2 and 3 along with some new ones because this is after all a brand new game. They're classic, they sound nice, they're fine, they're functional, they do what they're supposed to. The soundtrack, on the other hand, is pure bliss. While some tunes have been recycled from Mega Man 2 and in no way enhanced subtly or otherwise, the new tracks are very, very sweet. In fact, this game is one of the few Mega Man games, let alone one of the few recent video games I've played as of late, where a good chunk of the music was actually memorable and not just an afterthought. In a manner of speaking, it's almost embarrassing that this new set of compositions, as great as they are, has to share space with inferior, albeit classic tunes just for nostalgia's sake. Overall, Mega Man 9 does precisely what it's supposed to do. Recreate a game from an era long past, make it as close to authentic as possible, and most importantly of all, make it a fun, challenging, and satisfying video game. It is not an evolution, nor is it a regression, it's sort of a tribute and a celebration of Mega Man's prime years, as it were. And in that regard, this is a perfectly adequate and respectable homage to that era of Blue Bomber that has come and gone. And even at its own little thing in its own little world, it's still a pretty solid and enjoyable little side-scroller of the old-school persuasion that may appeal to folks who enjoy these kinds of games, as well as Mega Man enthusiasts who would probably already have bought this the first day it came out. For folks who have never touched a Mega Man game in their lives, I would not make number 9 your first. The challenge level is quite up there and can be discouraging for first-timers, and I'd say go for one of the earlier games to acclimate yourself to the formula before jumping into this one. But other than that, Mega Man 9 is good, wholesome, mega fun.